Top 3 Scariest School Hotel Horror Stories That Will Leave You Speechless. You shouldn't have clicked. The nightmares you'll carry with you, the horrors that will invade your thoughts, will be far worse than what you could have ever imagined. It's already too late now. You've opened the door to a story you weren't meant to hear. And once you hear it, it becomes a part of you. But now you're here. And you're going to wish you never were. Story number 1, The Vanishing Student. It was supposed to be a quiet weekend retreat, a break from the chaos of school life. The school's old guest house was converted into a hotel for visiting parents and staff, but students had recently started staying there for weekend study sessions. It was dark, secluded, and silent, almost too silent. Everything about the place screamed old. The wallpaper peeling off the walls, the flickering lights in the hallway, the unsettling creak of the floorboards. But no one paid it much mind. That is, until Sarah, a freshman, checked in. She was alone, staying in room 3B, the furthest room in the back. Her friends warned her that room 3B had a reputation. A place where students checked in but never checked out. Don't worry. It's just a story, she had laughed, brushing off their concerns. The first night, Sarah heard strange sounds, whispers in the dark, faint footsteps in the hall. Her eyes widened in fear, but she tried to push it away, thinking it was just the house settling. But when she woke the next morning, something was off. The bed had been made, yet she hadn't gotten out of bed all night. Confused and unnerved, Sarah went down to the lobby to ask the staff if they had entered her room. The receptionist looked at her, pale, with eyes filled with recognition and fear. Room 3B, the receptionist whispered. No one has stayed in room 3B for years. No one ever stays there. Her heart dropped. Later, when they checked the security footage from the previous night, Sarah's blood ran cold. She was visible on the footage, walking down the hall toward her room. But the camera's last frame showed her entering room 3B, and then, nothing. No one left. No one entered. It was as if she had never existed. No one ever saw Sarah again. The school hotel was quickly shut down, but the legend of room 3B never went away. Story number 2, The Laughing Ghost of the Hotel. It had been a long week of studying, and 5 friends, Jacob, Emily, Mark, Rachel, and Stephen, decided to rent a room at the school hotel to unwind. They were given room 12A, a spacious corner room with a large window that looked out into the woods behind the school. But something wasn't right. As soon as they stepped inside, an overwhelming sense of dread seemed to settle over them. It wasn't just the isolation of the room, it was the laughing. A deep, guttural laughter echoing from nowhere. It sounded like it came from all directions. It was low and mocking, like something had been listening to their every word. They tried to brush it off, but as the night deepened, so did the laughter. It grew louder, closer, until they couldn't tell whether it was inside their heads or outside the room. At one point, Rachel stepped into the bathroom, her heart racing as the laughter echoed louder and louder. When she looked into the mirror, her reflection didn't move with her. It stood there, staring back, grinning manically. But there was no one behind her. She screamed. But when the others ran to the bathroom, they found Rachel standing, her face pale, her body stiff. She didn't speak. She couldn't speak. Her eyes glazed over, locked in terror. And the laughter? It was gone. But Rachel was never the same again. She was a shell, a hollow version of the girl she had been. They never found the source of the laughter, and Rachel was transferred to a different school shortly after. But even now, she swears she still hears it at night, echoing in the corners of her mind, that low, mocking laugh. Story number 3, The Room That Never Was. In the early 2000s, a group of senior students stayed at the school hotel during an overnight field trip. They were told there would be no rooms available for them in the main hotel, so they were assigned to an annex building further down the road. The building was old, made of crumbling bricks, and had a smell of musty wood and mildew that never left. The students were assigned to room 5, but when they tried to open the door, it was locked. It wasn't the usual lock. It was an ancient, rusted lock that looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. The students waited for a staff member to unlock it, but after an hour, no one came. Curiosity got the better of them, and they decided to break open the door themselves. When they finally managed to get inside, they found a room that didn't belong. There were no windows. The walls were covered in strange symbols that seemed to shift when they weren't looking. The beds were all made, but there were no sheets, only what looked like rags thrown across the frames. The most disturbing part of the room, however, was the mirror. It was large, rectangular, and strangely clean compared to the dust that had covered everything else. But when one of the students, Tom, looked into it, he didn't see himself. He saw someone else. Someone wrong. A figure that looked just like him, but with hollow eyes, a twisted grin. Tom turned away in horror, but when he looked back, the figure was still there, staring at him. Tom screamed. His friends tried to pull him out of the room, but it was too late. The moment they stepped over the threshold, the door slammed shut behind them with a force that shook the building. The students tried to break it open, but it was useless. The door wouldn't budge. They were trapped. The night was filled with strange sounds, scratching at the door, whispers from inside the walls, and Tom's voice, his voice, calling from the other side. But when they managed to break open the door hours later, no one was there. No Tom. Only the mirror, which now had a new figure staring back at them, their own reflections. They ran. No one ever spoke of it again. The ending. Now that you've heard these stories, you may feel the weight of their horror clinging to you. You may feel that twinge in the back of your mind as though something is watching you. And maybe, just maybe, when you sleep tonight, you'll hear the whisper of footsteps just outside your door. Or a low, mocking laugh in the darkness. Because the nightmare isn't over. It never ends. Do you feel it now? The sensation that someone is standing behind you? Watching you? Waiting? That's no coincidence. Subscribe now. You won't want to miss what comes next. But remember, you can't unhear this. You've been marked. And now you're never truly alone.